So, Yin Yoga. This is a little introduction to what Yin Yoga is, how it differs from Hatha Yoga, and also what equipment you need to do a Yin Yoga class. I have a Yin Yoga class on a Saturday morning, a 2-hour extended class, 1 hour of Yin, half an hour of more Yang Yoga, as in more active movement-based yoga, and then half an hour of a nice long Yoga Nidra, long relaxation. Yin Yoga comes from the Chinese philosophy that we have a yin side to our nature and we have a yang side to our nature. If you think of the yin yang symbol, half of it is white and half of it is black. And there's a little dot in each side of the opposite colour. So the yin is the darker side of our nature. And it represents the feminine, it represents our more passive state, it represents a more receptive state. And what we do in Yin Yoga is we don't warm up the muscles, but we hold postures for length of time, anything from 2 minutes to 5 minutes. And in that process, what we're trying to do is target the connective tissue. So if you think about the knee joint as being like this, here's the top leg, here's the bottom leg. In Yin Yoga, if we're doing something with the knee, what we would try to do is stretch it ever so slightly and then hold and hold and hold for 2, 3, 4, even 5 minutes. And when we do that, all that connective tissue that is holding the bones together gets very gently tugged. The ligaments and tendons don't stretch. They're not elastic like a muscle. But they've got a little bit of, they're made of collagen, so they've got a little bit of give in them, but only a little bit. Like a very strong piece of elastic, doesn't stretch very much. So in the hold, those ligaments and tendons are stressed rather than stretched, but not in a way that causes any pain, not in a way that causes any electrical feelings in the body. It's intense, and it's deep, but it's keeping those ligaments and tendons flexible and strong. So when we come back to our normal position, those the connective tissue inside the knee joint has been given some space and some flexibility so that they don't become rigid, so they don't become really hard and immobile. So that's the theory of it. That's why we do Yin Yoga. So when we do a lot of physical yoga, more active yoga, muscles like repeated action, like a rhythmical movement, a muscle likes to be stretched and then released and stretched and then released. And then blood flow goes into the muscles, the muscle fibers get plumped up with the fresh blood and the oxygen and the heat from the blood, and that's what our muscles like. So we keep the muscles cool, we don't warm them up at all, otherwise we can't access those deeper tissues, the connective tissues and the tendons and the ligaments, the fascia as well through the body, which is the web that goes through everything. That is also stretched in Yin Yoga. The other aspect to Yin is the fact that because they're long holds for each posture, you can find that you get quite impatient with it. You can find that you start to want to fidget, like your toes and your hands, and you start to want to kind of move, because we are, in our culture, we are kind of trained almost to what's next, what's next, what's next, instead of being really content with where we are in this moment. And so it can be a really good way to get into a mindfulness or meditation practice, because you have to be aware of that, the mind's tendency to want to move on to the next thing. And instead of moving on, we see that impulse to move on, and then we go, actually, we're going to hang on in here with the discomfort, with the intensity. We're going to breathe into it. And that is a really good training for life. So when we're in difficult situations, we don't push away, we don't run away, we don't avoid, we stay and we breathe into it and we get through. So it's a good training for the mind as well as the body. So if I show you a few of the different props that I've got, you don't need all of these props. These are just things that you could, some things you can grab from around your house, most things you can grab from around your house. and a couple of things that are really crucial kit that you need for a yin practice. So let me talk you through what I've got here. So the first thing that you need is some yoga blocks. So these wide blocks are really handy to have for all your yoga classes. They're 2 inches thick, so you can use a book that's 2 inches thick instead. But because they've got a big surface, they're really good for loads of different things. So I wouldn't really do a yoga practice without a couple of those. I don't use bricks so much in normal practice, but I do use them quite a lot in yin. These are a nice little brick, and the thing about them is you can use them this way up, or this way up, or this way up. So they have lots of different faces on them. These are slightly bigger bricks. So there's this size and there's this size. So slightly bigger. And these are also quite handy, but you don't need both. If you have either of those sizes. And it is always good to have 2 of things, so that if you're doing something where you've got to prop up your knees, you've got 1 for each side. And something like that, you could maybe just use 1, because what I use that for, I tend to just use 1 of those. But anyway, blocks and bricks, number 1. Number 2 is cushions. So I've got thin cushions like this are really handy for yoga, because you can just sit on the edge of them. You can fold them up. So if I'm sitting cross-legged and I'm uncomfortable, I can just pop that underneath my knee to support my knee, or I can have it flat. So these are quite good because you can use them in all different ways. They create different wedges and things like that. But I've also got a couple of nice big feather cushions, which are really soft and squishy, and also you can fold them as well if you want to get more height. And then any sort of blankets. So again, you can grab these from around the house. Any blankets, because with blankets you can fold them into all different shapes. This is quite a nice shape we use quite a lot in yin, where you can lay your spine along a folded blanket in Shavasana, and it really opens up the chest. So having a few blankets ready is a good idea. And then the thing that if I was going to start a yin practice and I didn't have kit, the thing I would definitely buy is a bolster. Or I'll show you how I've made bolsters as well. So this bolster is full of buckwheat. So because of that, it's really squishy. So I can kind of really, if I'm putting this in to do a forward bend, I can really kind of make it fit my body shape. So this one's really, really good. And then I bought another bolster, which is solid. It's like a solid sort of foam bolster. And although this is nice and firm, I find that I prefer the one that's got the buckwheat in. So if you're going to buy a bolster, buy a buckwheat bolster. And the other thing about the buckwheat is you can unzip it and take some of the buckwheat out if you find it's too firm. This one, because I can't use this in different ways, I find I don't use this bolster so much. And then if you don't have a bolster, what I did as well for some of my students is I had these big square cushions off a sofa, and you can see that I folded them in half. They're feather cushions, so they're quite soft, and you can kind of do lots with them. And then I just put a couple of yoga straps around them to create a sort of bolster shape. And again, because they're feather, I can squish that into different shapes. So this is actually a good alternative if you haven't got a bolster, is to make something like that. But really, really important, because we use this in lots of ways in yin yoga. We can lie on it, we can lean on it, we can put it under the knees, we can put it against the wall, put the legs up the wall. So really, really handy bit of kit. So couple of blocks, couple of cushions, blankets, and a bolster. That's your kit you need for yin. I'm going to record a yin class for YouTube as well, just a short one to give you a little introduction to yin. And then I invite you to my Saturday morning class, 10 o'clock in the morning for 2 hours. At the moment they're all on Zoom, but hopefully once we get through the lockdown, they will be live classes as they were before March, when all the classes closed. So I hope you find that useful.